Welcome to a very special edition of NAMI-NYS Perspectives. We are so honored today to be joined by NBA legend, 2004 Defensive Player of the Year, mental health advocate extraordinaire, and the feature of the excellent documentary A Quiet Storm, the one and only Metta Sandiford-Artest. Metta, thank you so much for joining us today, man.
Absolutely, it's good to be here. I'm always good to be in the presence of NAMI. Y'all doing amazing things. Matthew, you're doing amazing things, and it seems like you're so passionate about, any human, all humans. NAMI is a great organization. I've been working with NAMI for, I don't even know, maybe 4 years, 5 years, and it's been great.
Well, thank you so much, and for your kind words, and thank you for all that you're doing. You know, we're so excited to be able to partner with you and Artest University and your dad and Brittany Kennedy, and we're working on bringing programs into Queensbridge where you grew up, and we're very excited about that opportunity. And again, this wouldn't have happened without you first telling your story and being the subject of the documentary Quiet Storm that Showtime did that got this whole ball rolling. So thank you for doing all that you're doing.
Absolutely, man. Thanks a lot.
Of course. So obviously, first and foremost, I want to ask you, this has obviously been, since we've seen each other last in September, it's been a tough year, really a lot of tough stuff. So first and foremost, I want to ask you, how are you and your family are doing out in California with COVID and everything? Everyone got through social isolation okay?
Yeah, I mean, social distancing and making sure we're quarantining and staying in isolation as much as possible. And I know we had the big protest stuff that was happening, so that kind of set us back a couple of weeks potentially. Got to get everybody back indoors. It's kind of, just being safe. But yeah, everything is solid, and everybody's coming together in solidarity.
Yeah, and I know it's got to be really tough for you, of course. I mean, it's been like one bombshell after another this year, and we lost your video there for a second. But
yes,
obviously, the bad things started when we lost Kobe. Your former teammate Kobe Bryant, who, that was such a big blow to so many people. It was amazing seeing the impact he had on people, and obviously the impact on you. And I love his quote in your movie, because in some ways it's like perfect for what we're going through now, when he says,
right,
you want to establish peace. How do you get through peace? By going through war. And I think it's such an interesting analogy. But can you kind of tell us a little bit about what Kobe meant to you and how you kind of dealt with his passing?
Well, when Kobe said that, he was speaking on the comparison to how we got here as a society. Obviously, in the history, we've been through war at multiple countries and so many different type of things, and we try to have peace. And sometimes we always resort back to situations that we don't want to be in, such as the protest situation, and such as other countries bombing each other, or whether it's us going into a country and bombing. Things like that is, humans don't really react well to that. So, when I was at a point in my life when I got with Kobe where I got my ring and I felt like I could just chill now. I don't need to be that excited. And Kobe he still wanted me to keep the engine going, and we do miss him a lot. But he meant a lot. He was the type of human to come back from adversity, to come back from public humiliation, to come back from just being down. And that says a lot about a person, because you could easily just go into a corner, don't come out. But he took on the challenge of going back into the public, knowing that maybe you've done something wrong, and this is America, and this is, you face your your fears, or you face any bed that you made for yourself. You try, just face it and deal with it head on. And that's what he did. As we know, nobody's perfect. So many people make mistakes, myself included. And it's just, that's life. That's life for you. You're always going to get a human being making a mistake. Always.
Right. That's, it's so brilliant too, what you said, because I told you this when I met you back in Queensbridge. You and I have somewhat similar backgrounds where we struggle with anger issues, and we both have had, like you said, with Kobe, very public, embarrassing situations and humiliating situations. And we don't have to get into details about, but like rising above that and that type of resiliency to move forward from that. Because I know, like you talked about in the movie, and like when I had a very public outburst of anger, and ironically, it's kind of the opposite of your story. I was the one who actually threw a soda at somebody, but at a wall. But you feel so low after that it's so hard to pick yourself back up and move forward. But when it happened to me, it was in a work situation. I could have easily got fired, but the fact that they understood what was going on, it made me want to work for them harder and do a better job and come back stronger and people had faith in you. You want to live up to that. So can you talk about that, and about, you said something so profound to me the other day that it just like shook me to my core when I read your email, when you said, doing good deeds is a form of protest too, and the work we're doing is so important. So can you talk about kind of that resilience to rise above some negative situations?
Listen, we're not perfect as human beings. We can't expect a racist to be perfect. You can't expect everyone to protest. You can't tell somebody they're wrong because they're not out protesting. Everybody's doing things differently. We're occupied by television, by media, social media, family, working 9 to 5 to feed the family. Some people are in a meditative state right now, meaning they've probably been through stuff and they're trying to relax, and then the protest happens and maybe you don't want to get out that meditative state, right? So 7 billion people on the planet, maybe 100 million total was marching, maybe 50 million, right? So not everybody's out. You can't hold people accountable or at fault for not marching as this plane goes by me. But also, everybody's so different. When people say celebrities should be protesting, I mean, I agree, I do. But when you think about it, some people have fear, some people don't. Maybe somebody's afraid to get hit or trampled, or you don't know what's going to happen. I didn't go protest until the third day because I seen it on television. I said, I don't feel like I don't want to get involved. I wouldn't mind going down the block and chanting, but I don't feel like getting in any situation with police or anyone. I don't feel like being around people looting. I don't want to be around certain things. So everybody's different. But some people that were there on the front lines, you got to really give it up. And it was a lot of young people.
Yeah.
Lots of young people that are having the courage and fighting for us, how our ancestors fought for us. It's really impressive. And then to see the diversity of people that was out there fighting for a movement, I just thought it was real courageous. And I'm hoping that we can get to a point where we start to say all lives matter. I think right now is probably, it's the time, but it's the focus is on the Black Lives Matter movement. I didn't know what the Black Lives Matter movement was last year, quite honestly, because I really make decisions for myself. My history. I had problems with people, in my communities. I had problems with police sometimes, right? So for me, sometimes I developed this wall where I got problems with everybody.
Right.
So. But when you get older, you start to think about things differently, and you just want the best. I mean, you just want the best for everyone. I mean, it's a thing right now where people are saying, like, I don't see color. I mean, I see color. If you're Asian, if you're white, if you're Black, I see a special person inside you. And I feel like so many times people are afraid to be themselves. Black people are afraid to be Black. White people are afraid to be white. It's not supposed to be like that. You are supposed to be happy in your skin, no matter who you are. That's what being human is about. That's why we are so different and we're not perfect. I see a lot of people, even in my situation, when people will call me thug because of how I act and how I talk and how I carry myself. Some people call it ignorant, whatever they wanted to say, but you can't make me feel bad because how I am and how I grew up. the same way I can't make a white person feel bad because of something someone else did, right? And, you know, and I'm not going to apologize for being thuggish, right? So why should a white person apologize for being kind of racist? You know, if you're a kid, you can't control that. You can't control what you're taught. So as humans, sometimes we got to sit back. This is not going to change in one day. If we're trying to get everybody to change in one day, then we might as well go to war now. This is not happening. It takes time. Everything takes time. With time, things pass. With meditation, things pass. With breathing together, things pass. You know, and that's the words from, you know, the Buddhist culture, you know, and that's how time is going to heal. We can't keep putting pressure on people to change overnight, even with women and the size of women. We're always trying to get them to get skinny now, you know, and they put so much pressure on themselves. You know, people going to be in there, becoming anorexic, going into mental health institutions. It applies to everything.
Oh my God, so much to unpack in what you said right there. But one of the things I think you said that's so interesting is that people do have such a hard time being themselves and being comfortable in their own skin. You know, it was so interesting. Like I think about this, right? You know, when we went down to do the Quiet Storm event down in Queensbridge, you know, it's interesting. I grew up in Manhattan, all the way on the east side on York Avenue, stone's throw to Queensbridge, but couldn't have different worlds away, even though my family had a lot of economic hardship. I had, you know, a lot of struggles, but, you know, still me going into Queensbridge, I'm a big doofy white guy. I know what I am, you know, you own it. I can't go in there and act like a thug, right? You know, people would see you as being phony, they'd laugh you right out there, but they see who I am, you know, I'm generally am who I am. I can't change it, you know, but you be genuine and you come in there with love and you show love and you show that you care. And I got to tell you, Metta, the reaction we got from people that day was like nothing I've ever experienced before. That warmth and that welcoming, and people were literally welcoming us into where they live. It was a beautiful thing. And I think part of it was that we just being who we were and showing that we care and that we want to listen. And that's so important, you know?
Yeah, definitely. Listening is key. You know, and right now, you know, because of our history and things we've been through in the short term over the last 400 years, which is very short compared to how long the earth has been here and how long humans been on this planet, right? So at the last 500 years, we've been taking the short end of the stick. Also, a lot of other ethnicities and nationalities had the short end of the stick, you know, due to power. And, you know, this is human nature. Right. So we got to understand, you know, who we are as people. But I just want people to feel comfortable. You should have days where you're happy. We should not be here every day talking about, you know, injustice or justice. We should be talking about impact. You know, the conversations need to shift slowly from social justice to social impact, or not even a social impact, just impact. You know, it's time for us to start dreaming. You know, we got so many things to reach. If you look at us on this planet Earth and you look outside the galaxy, look at all the places that we have to explore. We're here fighting when we should be reaching. Like, we should be reaching for the stars.
Yeah.
Like,
Dude, I'm so glad you said that, man, because last week, I mean, it was so interesting. As everything was kind of descending, you know, the protesters were coming up, we had all this negativity here on Earth. The fact that we sent that spaceship up from America and we went up the stars, with all the negativity going on, the fact that we're still reaching for the stars, like you said, is so important. And I'm so glad you articulated that because, you know, there's only place to go is up, right? So it's up, you know, to all of us to kind of lift each other up and keep us all reaching for the stars. So I'm so glad you said that. So
absolutely.
I do want to ask you, so with all the negative going on, I mean, with the, you know, obviously with Kobe and COVID and now this, how, with all this negativity around you, for someone who's been susceptible to anger and mental health issues, how have you maintained your balance and your mental wellness through what's been a difficult time for everybody, because everyone's struggling right now?
Well, this time I kind of tipped and I said had a lot of bad language in my social media because I felt like if I was to censor anything, it's not going to help. I think people need to see how people feel. And one of the reasons why I was venting a lot is because the more people just say, why are you upset about the protests? It's the more I want to vent. I'm not going to stop venting until you shut up, because we need to vent. Imagine a baby crying and you saying, don't cry, don't cry. The baby needs to vent. The baby has to build the character, build personality. Crying is good. Venting is good. You know, when you leave it bottled in, if you're telling the baby don't cry, and one day the baby's going to explode when the baby get older. And this is actually building some more personality as a culture. Originally, it was like a Black culture for me, but this has made it a universal culture. Everybody's experienced the same culture at one time, which is really, really amazing. Going to be interesting to see what happens in the future. So, you know, venting is very important. You know if we don't vent and if we don't breathe, right, we hold things inside. Understand? So people need to let people vent. If somebody in your family has died and you go to the funeral and you say, don't cry, nobody's here, don't cry. If anybody cries, you know, it's going to be, that's ridiculous. They got to vent. And you don't know how long it takes people to grieve. Everyone's different. And this grieving period, I believe it's going to be a short period. And it's important that they let people grieve. You know, it's important that people look at the photos, look at the videos. It's like history. Like when we looked at, you know, I've seen old Black slave movies. I've seen Jewish concentration camp movies. I've seen Middle Eastern war movies, right? And we like, this is history, right? So we watch it, and we, as humans, we know we're not perfect, but that's no excuse for a human to do something wrong, even though we're not perfect. But that's no excuse for you to, you know, do something wrong and you say, oh, I'm not perfect. No, right. That's a bad excuse.
Right. I mean, we're always still accountable to ourselves too. And like you said, with Kobe, with you, and like I said, if you do wrong and you're lucky enough to get a second chance, it's so important that you make the most of that second chance and dedicate yourself to doing good. And you certainly set such a great example in that, like I say, with the anger, especially after watching the movie. See so much of myself in you, because, you know, I've had been verbally abused, so a lot of times that would trigger me the same way that beer, you know, cup triggered you, and you know, it's hard to work on those things, and finding those healthy outlets to release that steam is so important. So you sound like you're using breathing and meditation techniques, and we're really excited because we've been introducing those too during COVID, giving free meditation classes, yoga classes, journaling classes, letting people, like you say, really get in touch with their feelings, because we talked about before how hard it is to be in your own skin sometimes, but it's even harder sometimes to really feel your feelings. But like you say, you can't keep tampering them down. It's like the dam's gonna break, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, sometimes as mean or as negative as anger looks, sometimes it's a beautiful thing. We're human. It shows another side of us. You know, you get a chance to get to know somebody. You know, I think that's really important. And people are, you know, some people are prideful. You have all sorts of groups. You know, as human beings, when you think about it, you know, we're naturally tribalists. And look at all the groups in America. When you think about it, there's a lot of groups in America, very similar to Africa. You know, and other places, dialects. You know, in India, 1,000 dialects. China, 1,000 dialects. You know, and I'm sure people don't agree with each other. You know, I think I don't really mind right wing. I don't mind anybody who feel a certain way. You know, but I also don't mind talking to somebody who's racist. I truly don't, because for me, I'm just as imperfect as anybody else. Now, am I happy with how people treat others, or how they abuse, or how they would just kill people? No, I'm not happy about that, and I will fight for that. But I'm saying, like, you know, this is Earth. We are human. I'm a realist. You know, I love kumbaya, but I'm a realist. People
Right.
are different. And I think sometimes when we try to include and have so much inclusion, some people don't want inclusion, which is okay. Like, who cares? I don't think, I really don't think people should feel bad because they think a certain way. Now,
Sure.
if you're thinking in a way that's violent, where you want to just kill people or you just hate people, I think you got some changing to do. This is not happening overnight. This is a beautiful thing to see people change. We've seen it a couple times where you'll see somebody who is racist just say, I'm not racist anymore, you know? And you see a lot of kids now that's saying, mommy and daddy, speaking up. Why are you racist? And they have a history with their mom and their dad. They was taught something, son, daughter. I was taught something to hate people. When I was younger, I was taught, not by, I was actually taught that, they used to say all white people's bad, and if you keep hearing that, you're going to think that until you meet white people.
Yeah.
And, right, but you'll think that. I was the type of person, I didn't believe it, but from what I saw on television, when you're a young kid, you don't know the difference between a Caucasian American or a European Jewish person or an Italian as a 6-year-old kid. So if somebody's instilling that in you, then you're going to think everybody with the skin color is bad.
Yeah.
Right?
That's really it. Yeah.
And
Yeah,
it's
definitely
important. Yeah, so that's why as humans we have to be more understanding,
right.
Especially in the mental health field. We got to be
Definitely in the
understanding,
mental health.
especially in the mental health field.
Yeah, and that is actually a great segue to something I wanted to bring up. So I love your book, No Malice, right here. And that's exactly what you're saying right now, No Malice. But I want to read a little quote from your book here, which I think is kind of on what we've been talking about, but I think it's so interesting. And it's, you're kind of talking about growing up in Queensbridge and what was going on around you. And you say, my father understood what I was going through. I saw what happened when he got angry, and I know he was on medication. There was a history of mental illness in my family. Everybody has problems, and people deal with those problems differently. It's hard to get support from your family or the people in your community when they're dealing with their own problems. There were not many well-balanced people in the environment I grew up in, so most of the time I had to figure things out for my own. So it's such an interesting way of looking at it when we talk about all the time how we have to support each other, but you can't support each other if you can't support yourself. If you can't care for yourself, you can't care for others. And so growing up in that environment when there's so much struggle around you, so much negativity, and people can't process that, what led you to kind of be this kind of shepherd and talking about your feelings and coming back? And I know, well, I think one of the most amazing things you've done in your life is when you sold the ring to get make sure the kids get mental health treatment. So can you talk about why it was so important for you to speak up and why it's so important that these communities who haven't come in touch with their feelings, no matter what communities they are, obviously
Right.
you talk about the community and you grew up in, but can you talk about how that's so important and it's more important than ever now in some ways?
Yeah, I think it's very important that people express themselves, speak up, and we so often hold things in. If a child is separated from the dad, that child's going to figure things out on its own, right? So the child is not going to, as they get 8 years old, 9 years old, 10 years old, 15 years old, that child is developing a personality. The personality is, I got to be a man, or I got to be my own woman. And then that also spills over into other relationships. So it's very important that you speak up and you let things out at an earlier age. And it's very important that we instill it into our people.
And so can you talk a little bit about the experience of doing the movie A Quiet Storm, which Showtime produced and put out about a year ago, which I think it's such an amazing story in telling your story, but we also talk, like you're kind of saying, about adverse childhood experiences and how that impacts people throughout their lives. And it's such a good example of that. Like, the scene that gets me in that movie every time I watch it, it's like within the first 5 minutes, but like they're showing the crack epidemic and the police are coming in and they're arresting people. And there's that little boy and he's saying, "Don't take my mommy away. Don't take my mommy away." Like, it's so heartbreaking. But how important was it to tell the story of what, both your story as well as the story of your community?
Well, I thought it was important to tell a story because people should kind of see how people grow up and why, why I act how I act, and I always had a really, I don't really care attitude because, at times you feel like nobody really cared. I grew up, with a father and a mom, so, my characteristics was way different as a young kid. Every night I go home, I'm going home with my mom and my dad. And then when that splits, you start to develop other personalities, and that's really difficult, to deal with. Some of those personalities are, you don't really care about me. I don't care about you. You're playing a basketball game, you hit me, and things just trigger. You didn't address these issues, and then anything can happen at any point in time. For me, towards the end of my teenage years, I started to have I really didn't care attitude. I literally, you're just waiting for an opportunity to show that you can fight, or to show that you can stand up for yourself. Because when you don't stand up for yourself, when you're younger and you get older, you like, it's still some people you feel like you owe, a fight with. And sometimes if you don't address it, you'll explode at the wrong time and possibly on the wrong person. So it's just life lessons, and it takes people like ourselves to continue to give these stories back to the community, direct to the people, even to the council workers, so they understand, like, this is what you're dealing with, when you're working with people. Everybody's so different.
Yeah, well, and that's so important. And one thing before too, I do want to ask you about too. I know you've done a lot of mentoring for other players. Like when we were at the event at Queensbridge where we did the screening of Quiet Storm, Julius Randle of the Knicks talked about how much he knows he can call you at any time at night and Metta's going to pick up the phone and listen to me. So can you kind of talk about what's, your role in mentoring other players and how that's helped you? Because one thing we talk about at NAMI all the time, and it kind of goes back to that Kobe quote in the beginning with war and peace. Like, all of us who have faced mental illness have gone through war to get to peace, whether it's a war with ourselves, war with everything, to get to that peaceful place. But once we get to that peaceful place, we try to use our pain and our journey as a gift to help others. And I think that's so important. So, can you talk a little bit about that, how mentoring players has had an impact on them and have had an impact on you as well?
Yeah, mentoring players is great because I've been mentored so many times when I was younger by, older white men, older black men in my neighborhood, women guiding me in the right direction. And when you make it in the league and you see another young player coming up and you're on your way out, it's just like, anything you need, holla at me, because you just want to see them make it. And when you see all the young people coming in the league, whoever has the honor of putting that jersey on, you feel like you just want to help them, especially if somebody's having problems, because we know a lot of athletes have issues. We think it's like not a lot of issues, but you'd be surprised how many of these millionaire athletes are just kind of like, I feel bad today. And I can respect that. And I'm really shocked on how many people are not happy all the time. But I think sometimes when you get paid that much money, you would think that is going to bring you happiness. And I think it should be the other mindset. Just stay who you are, right? Do things that you always would have done, to stay happy.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna ask you a weird question in a way, because I very few of us could ever understand either aspect of this, but how difficult is it? You take a kid, and a kid signs an NBA contract, a lot of these could be 18, 19, take them, they're from the projects, they're from tough neighborhoods. The next thing you know, you're handing them a multi-million-dollar check. You know, everyone would say that would be a dream come true, right? But that's a lot of pressure that comes with that. You know, it's not easy, and we see so many people who don't know how to handle their money. I know that's some of the work that you do with Artest University is teaching people how to manage their money, because that gets into mental health too. You know, it's got to be hard. You know, there's so many people who depend on you. Once you get that check, you're taking care of your family. So can you kind of talk about that pressure? Because I think it's a part of professional athletics or anything where people make a lot of money quick, and they think, like you say, life's going to be easy now, but it's like that old more money, more problems, right?
Yeah, it's so true. I mean, more money, you know, more problems as we hear the sirens go off in Los Angeles. You know, so many times we think money brings happiness, and that's not the case. It does bring some type of freedom. You know, having money does allow you to do certain things, but we've seen so many cases where people with money commit suicide at an early age, right? So it's important for even people like us that's in the mental health field to prepare our kids for different life scenarios. We don't do that enough, right? We don't prepare our kids. Hey, you might make money one day. We think our kids just need mental health help all the time. We forget that when they become 18 and 20, they might start to turn out okay. They might make a lot of money. So we should give them more tools. They might have a family, right? You know, we should start giving them more tools that we feel they're gonna need. You know, when you get older, you should pay taxes. You should save your money. You should, if you make a lot of money, maybe get a corporation and write things off and start a foundation and don't get involved with a lady until you're ready, like stuff like that.
Yeah, well, that's great advice for everybody. You know, take things at a time. Because something else that you said I think is so important, that I think people set goals for themselves, and they think once they get to that goal, they're going to feel a certain way. And then you get to that goal, you don't feel the way you think, and that's like a disappointment. But it's to what you said before. I think at the end of the day, right, you just got to be comfortable in your own skin and love you as a person, not love you as a basketball player or me as an advocate, or get so wrapped up in our identities being our professions or something else that we kind of forget who we are a little bit. And I'm so glad you talk about the importance of the individual.
Yeah, absolutely. I think yeah, I just think everybody just, so different, and even as we are on the front lines of someone's happiness, being in mental health, we are on the front lines of happiness. I think we should also, as we evolve, or as the mental health community, social workers, therapists, as we evolve, start to put other things in there. And I think a lot of the therapists are starting to put in breathing exercises and meditation, that was not normal a couple of years ago. I mean, well, even 10 years ago, 15 years ago, it was more, let's just talk about it. Mm-hmm. And after we talk, did you vent? And after you vent, all right, you go home. And sometimes that works, but now you see the therapist actually putting in breathing exercises, which is one of the most amazing tools you can have when you got control over your emotions and your breath. Right. So it's the most amazing feeling for me. I remember when I first started, and I'm like, wow, this is life. This is really life, and I've been mad for so long, and I'm just like, this is one of the greatest feelings ever, just to be okay, I still get edgy sometimes, obviously, because I'm human, but it's amazing that I was able to experience calmness, because some people don't experience this, right? Some people, whether you take a medication or whether you have therapy, some people don't experience calmness. They just running through life at this pace where they're just upset every day, and we can give more tools to people, in mental health and the things surrounding mental health also.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. As someone who's taken medication since the time I was 3.5 years old for mental health issues, I've come to learn the medication can get you 90% of the way. It's up to you to figure out how to get yourself to the finish line. And breathing is such a important tool. I'll tell you a real cool little anecdote. I did an interview with LaShawn Sugar Ray Marston from Queensbridge, who's a remarkable guy. We've become friends, and he was telling me he has I think his son's like seven or eight, and he's teaching him how to meditate. And throughout all the COVID and all the negativity, and of course, you know how hard Queensbridge was hit, and seeing all of that, teaching his son to meditate. He said one day they were going to go out for the walk, and the son said, "You know what, Dad, I need 5 more minutes to breathe and meditate." And I just thought that was fantastic. So, you know, that it's good to hear that that's being so embraced by more people. It's so important. But you've given us so much time to. I'm so appreciative. Before I let you go, though, I know I forgot to ask you this in our pre-interview, but did you want to discuss about the new app that you had? I know we had talked.
Yeah,
about
definitely.
So
I have absolutely. I have an app that's trying to bring together basketball players and give them opportunities, whether it's coaching, whether you want to be a referee, whether you want to try to get a job overseas, if you're looking for a high school to play, if you're a parent worried about how is your kid going to get access to sports opportunities, go to xvsxsports.com. That's xvsxsports.com. The app is coming out, and you'll get notification when the app is out. You could actually get on right now. If you go to the App Store and go xvsx, you could get in early and see the features change, because we're going to be updating the features. But we're closing down in about 7 days. So the app will be closed, and then we're going to open it back up. So you can get in early right now. It's all about sports. It's all about giving back. It's all about social impact. And how can you create a business and have social impact at the same time, right? And that's what we try to do.
Oh, that's fantastic. Listen, Metta, I can't thank you enough, for being you and for being such an example of resiliency, and for all that you've done to promote mental health and to promote NAMI and this partnership. It's such a beautiful thing. And this is just the beginning of it. We have so much work to do together. I do want to say, you know, we're going to be, like I said, we're going to be joining Artest University, and Metta's dad, Ron Artest Sr., Brittany Kennedy, the executive director of Artest University, and I were going to be doing a panel June 15th about mental health, COVID in Queens. I'm sure we're going to be discussing other events too, and I hope you can join us. Metta, anything you want to leave us with before we leave today?
Let's do it again. Let's do a part 2. I hope everybody enjoyed this interview, and if you really enjoyed it, let Matthew know, let NAMI know, and let's do it again. Let's keep the discussion and the conversations going, and be proud of yourself. It doesn't matter if you're Filipino, Black, Indian, Asian, white. Be happy. Don't let anybody tell you have to be anything different. You do not have to be like us. We do not have to be like you. You just need to be yourself and be happy.
Yeah, there are no better words to leave you on, so I can't even say anything else other than that. Metta, thank you so much for all your insight and advice today. Thank you for watching. Again, if you want to learn more about Metta, the movie A Quiet Storm, Showtime.com. I know they're giving out 30 free days a trial subscription, so you can watch the movie. The book is No Malice. I highly recommend it. Go seek it out, and thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time on NAMI-NYS Perspectives.